Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce Maaike Richter, who will give a talk about scarcity is entering the net. Well, there are some things to tell about scarcity. We all know oil is running out and it's limited supply. On the other hand, there are artificial scarcities. There is no reason why information would be scarce because it can be easily copied and easily transported. And well, I think that's a bit of the gist that Maaike Richter will tell us tonight. Enjoy her speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome once more. So yes, I'm going to talk about digital sustainability today, but before I do that, I want to introduce myself. So I work as a journalist, and I sometimes lecture at a university, and I focus on internet culture and on political aspects of the internet. Okay, and today I want to talk about digital sustainability, and at first it sounds really weird to hear the term sustainability when talking of digital things and of the internet, because sustainability, the whole concept, the whole framework of it is very much tied to the analog world, to the meat space, and keywords here, environment and environment protection. And the bottom line is always, when people talk of sustainability, that we have to take care of our resources because they are endless. And on the contrary, on the internet, we do have something like paradise-like circumstances or paradise-like characteristics, because by default on the internet we have absence of scarcity, because information grows by sharing and you just cannot use it up. And I've been asked 3 times what sustainability means, so I just want to say the German word, so maybe some other guys don't know. So that simply means Nachhaltigkeit, and scarcity means Knappheit. Okay, so and the main argument of my lecture is that although we can say maybe that in the original internet we did have this paradise-like circumstances that information grows by sharing. And my main argument here is that there are certain legal, political and technical parameters which reduce information flow. And so we do need a framework or concepts of sustainability for the net as well. So what can you expect from the next half an hour? So we'll talk about concepts of sustainability on and offline, and then I will present the threats, the powers which are starting to introduce scarcity to the net. And we have here intellectual property rights, and then the soul cease and desist mania, and I will talk of the principle of net neutrality, what that is, and that it's being undermined. Another important issue are security measures, and then I will very briefly talk about the difficulties when you try to preserve information. If you have questions of understanding, feel free to ask, but let's do the discussion of the whole issue after the lecture. Okay, so there's this big myth, a very beautiful myth as well, and I'm sure everyone in the room has heard of it, and maybe some of you guys still believe it. And the myth goes like this, that on the internet there's space for everybody, for every activity, and for every opinion. So, but the sad truth is that the informational sphere is massively under attack, and that the era of information overflow is definitely coming to an end. Okay, so what does sustainability really mean? So that's a term that comes from the industrial age. It comes from the offline world, because the poor and sad offline world has to deal with this feature of scarcity. So what I mean with this is that whatever good you take, you know, be it oil or be it food or wood or whatever material good, there's always too little of it for everyone. So, and this is why a fair distribution of the material goods, of material resources, is just an impossible dream. And even worse, the exploitation of this material resources is harming our environment and is destroying the planet. So what does sustainability really mean? There are tons and tons of definitions of it, but two of the most popular ones go like this, that we shouldn't consume more than can be regenerated, so what can be grown after, and that people should preserve their environment and their resources, not only for themselves, but as well for future generations. But we are already nose deep in the famous information age, or we as well can call it network society or information society or knowledge society. They all kind of mean the same. And this is that it's not anymore material resources anymore, which are sources of wealth and power, but it's information and knowledge. And so they are the oil of the 21st century, we can say, and information has become a much contested trade commodity. And my argument is that exactly how the exploitation of oil, for example, is destroying whole landscapes, or like, too much fishing is destroying the sea, the ruthless exploitation of the resource information is as well harming our online environment, and the privatization of information. But like every school kid knows about sustainability in the analog world and knows what it's all about, but really there's an absence of a political framework, or an absence for most people. They just don't think of that we do have to come up with some frameworks in order how to preserve the digital world. And this is especially kind of strange because we shift our lives more and more onto the online world. So I do think it's a very big mistake that there's an absence of ideas and absence of political frameworks in order to protect the net, because it is pretty much in danger. So what are the dangers? I'm going to present them now. I want to start with intellectual property rights, with copyright. So copyright never really was a big issue before the internet came. That was like an issue for specialists. But then the net became a mass medium and the whole system broke down. I mean, just as the music industry, they really can tell stories of this. So why did the whole system broke down? Because with the net and with all the digital technologies around, like one file, like one music file or film file, whatever you name it, is enough to supply all internet users of the world, because free copying is simply a characteristic of the net. Like every time we use digital technologies, every time we use the net, we simply do copies. So this is the absence of a scarcity thing I talked in the beginning. And of course, this characteristic, this free copying, is threatening business models which are designed for the analog world. And their reactions of these firms is threefold. So I'm talking now mostly about media firms. And then we have like a legal layer of this reaction. So we see a massive exaggeration and strengthening of copyright law. That is a worldwide phenomenon. And then we have a technical layer. So we see the introduction of technologies like digital rights management, or some call it digital restrictions management, depends on the side you're on. And these technologies, of course, are a barrier from copying information, from copying things. And then we see a flood of lawsuits for file sharers, but as well to kind of normal users. Because my main argument here is that when you use, like an average person who's using the internet is violating copyright law all the time, just by day-to-day action. And effects are devastating because a very strong copyright is harming free speech, and as well, you know, expression of creative practices is suppressed. I'm not really talking about this whole file sharing issue. What I'm talking about is, for example, how average people use the internet and use digital technologies. For example, when I was a kid, we kind of did collages from newspapers. But today, these kids, they sample together music and sounds, and maybe then they post it onto their websites, and then, of course, they can get into legal hassle very easily, and that can be pretty costly. And as well, creative people are as well harmed by way too strong copyright law, because when you want to do something new, you have to have access to a creative pool of other or older creative works. Like, no composer can compose something new, you know, without knowing works from the past. But if you have, like, on everything copyright, and you just cannot use stuff, or you have to do rights clearings before you can publish your things, we do have a problem, because then only people can be creative who have, for example, a major record label in their back, who do have the resources in order to pay, you know, for all the lawyers' bills. So in the end, copyright law, because it's so absolutely becoming so strong, it does censor, you know, certain behavior, and it's really day-to-day behavior, how people use the net. And certain information becomes scarce. Certain information is not making it to the internet. Another aspect of intellectual property right are patents, and I only want to talk about software patents, and really briefly on the surface, just to introduce the issue. So copyright you get onto creative works, and patents you get for technical innovations. And this whole system really kind of went the wrong way when the patent agencies started to grant patent on very trivial things, not like a real innovation, but, you know, patents on ideas, on business models, for example. So today we do have the situation that it's not anymore the best innovators that succeed, but it's very often the party with the biggest budget for patent clearings. Because as there are so many patents on trivial things, it's very easy that you do violate patent of another party. So there are these very famous trivial patents. So Amazon is having some weirdo one, for example. There's a patent on when you buy in an online store something and then you send it to someone as a present. So they do have a patent on this. On everyone else who's having an online shop and is putting this feature into his own online shop is actually violating this Amazon patent. They already had one of the one-click payment, you know, this feature where you just can have a book and then go one-click Bestellung. I just forgot the English word. They did have a patent on this, but they're losing this patent right now. So what's the problem with these, you know, very strong intellectual property rights concerning the issue of patents? Well, software is the language of the information age, so everything is code. And if there are only very few people are able to really speak this language, because only very few people do have the resources, you know, to always pay for the patent clearings, we do have a problem. And of course, certain innovations or certain software is not making it to the internet. To sum this part about intellectual property rights up, so famous Larry Lessig has put it into some